Welcome this morning. This has been a challenge. Let me get over here. This has been a challenge. Today we're having the BCA Border Community Alliance, and in the invite, I turned the words around and I said Community Border Alliance, and I was corrected. But we're doing this via Zoom this morning, as well as in person. Alma is here in person. And Celia is going to do her part remotely. So we're going to start right away with Alma. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just for you to know, we were starting the Century line at 7:14 a.m. It took us an hour and 5 minutes. So we barely made it. Next time I'm going to be there. Should I?
Keep going.
Okay.
Don't worry about me.
Since my slide is not going to be displayed for some reason, I'm going to move forward from there. Maybe that's
Good
better.
idea.
Okay. So just for you to know what we talk about, I want you to come here. I want to get
Keep going.
Okay. I want you to get over everything you read or saw on the board. Okay. Now, my next question. How many of you have been to Mexico? Cancun, Los Cabos, etc. How many of you have been to the border, to Nogales, Sonora? How many of you have been in Nogales, Sonora with the dentist? How many of you have been further, La Roca and the border? How many of you have been on the cross-border tours? Okay, good. I want to encourage you to take one of those cross-border tours because it will actually help us show you what's going on besides what you saw on the news, etc. And we're moving away from the traditional American way of charity. You know, nonprofits in the US are still called charities. And charities for me means you're always begging, you know, fundraising, and you're always in the red numbers. And that's fine because you are a charity. And it's usually, people still ask me if I get paid. Somehow people believe that I'm gonna be wearing Mother Teresa's habit, you know, and that's how you get funded. But none of us is Mother Teresa, so it's really difficult to fund the nonprofits. We have decided to call the charity efforts social investment for the past 15 years or so. And hopefully if you can get the slide later and it can be emailed to you, you will actually follow us in what we're talking about. When you invest your money, you're very careful. When you invest your money, oh, I forgot, sorry. When you invest your money, you want some return on it. You never invest money to lose it. That's not a very smart decision. So when we're speaking about investing, social investment in nonprofit, that means someone is going to earn something, to win something. And we want to speak in a win-win scenario. When we're investing on migrant issues on the border, regardless of our political position, religious position, etc., it's good for the community. So we have been targeting our main developers in the cities. If the city becomes very violent, like it happens in Juarez, it's bad for your business. It's bad for the value of your homes. So investing in the community for migrant issues on the border, it's a smart thing to do. We had a very long commercial chain in Mexico. You might have heard of it, OXXO, OXXO. It's like a 7-Eleven. It's actually, we joke and say that the first word that kids now learn, it's OXXO. It's everywhere. In every corner, you will find one. So those businesses wouldn't support the migrant shelters and rehab centers, you know, bad things, not good for your business, something like that. We went to their corporations and said, you know what, as a customer, I'm a customer. I go to an OXXO store to buy something, and I'm scared of seeing 7 migrants outside, you know, asking for money. I will go to another store. So you must support local nonprofits, including migrant shelters and rehab centers, because those are the people outside your stores. Those are the people you don't want to support, but I'm facing them right there, 7 of them outside your stores. So somehow we managed to change their vision of who you should support. You should support those organizations on the border that make the city a better place, a healthier place, a safer place. And now with the pandemic, I think we finally understood why we should support that kind of nonprofits. We now know, we always knew it, we now know that viruses do not need a visa. It used to be TB, long time ago. Now it's COVID. And by the way, I'm fully vaccinated, boost and everything, so I'm not wearing a mask, so you can understand me better. And the biggest issue is, how did we get here? Political decisions are made in Mexico City and DC, which is so far away from where things happen. So COVID actually made things better. I want to be on the positive side of the question. And now with the vaccinations, the highest vaccinated towns in Mexico are the border towns. Why? Because they got with a relationship with the US government, where kids and younger people who are not being vaccinated all over the country are being vaccinated in a bus, coming into the US for 5 minutes and coming back. People are lining up, and I'm speaking because my personal assistant at the community foundation I work for, Prozac, she made 7 hours on her 2 feet with her 14-year-old to get him vaccinated in Nogales, Arizona. They had to take 3 different buses waiting. That's how much people are willing to get vaccinated. And the border states are the lucky ones. And the other happy success stories on the border during the pandemic, and I just want to focus on the pandemic because it's something we will remember. Oh, here's the slide for the social investment. Let me see if I can.
No, Celia is doing that.
Oh, okay. Celia, can you move it a little bit so we can get the whole slide? Well, you know, kids were out of school everywhere. In Mexico, the schools, the public school were in very bad conditions, and even worse during the pandemic because the teachers, the school did not have the infrastructure for Zooming. Kids were Zooming through their mom's phone. And if you had more than one kid, then each kid would have to take a class or a school day per kid. You couldn't have the 3 kids in 3 different levels all at once. It was so difficult. But one thing that happened in Nogales is that we have started to support a new social investment program called Casa de la Misericordia. Many of you might have heard of it, where they had all of a sudden on March 2020, they were, you know, with 140 people that couldn't find shelter, migrant people seeking asylum, which was closed. You remember that, still is. And they started in this place that was destroyed. And they started to fix it with the migrants' labor. And the only kids in Nogales attending regular school were the migrant kids waiting for asylum. They were the lucky kids in the community. We got to hire new teachers, local teachers that had just graduated from college and couldn't find a job because schools were closed. Schools were not hiring. These 2 teachers are teaching there 50-something kids under 17. The first group was there from September 2020, and asylum was open for them in April 2021. So they almost completed their school year. They got all their report cards through WhatsApp, and they're all enrolled in school in the US now. So that's changing the narrative of who are coming into the US. The next step, which we just inaugurated yesterday, and we're so happy, and I really want you to listen for this. Starting yesterday, adults waiting for asylum are being trained in vocational skills. All of them registered. Many of them want to take more than one course. This is a 20-hour basic course in barbery, hairstyling, electronics, teacher's assistant, basic health, like it's gonna be taught by a nurse, basic, you know, CPR, etc. So when these people are granted asylum, if they will have the basic skills, the adults, there are 120 of them there, and the kids will have all completed at least 2 school years. This is their second school year there. With a regular school, kids go to school, they get their backpack, walk within the facilities, and go to their classroom. They are also getting English classes and some human rights basic classes by Save the Children. And then they are getting some activities, physical activities and yoga with BITE, Border Youth Tennis Exchange. There is another binational organization. And then there is us paying for the trainings. And then there are the kids attending regular school with regular teachers, with regular textbooks in a migrant center. This is the first time it has ever happened in Nogales. And let me tell you a little bit of how this is funded. All of this, the slide is gone. How the social investment mindset is worked. We applied for a grant with the LDS, Lake Day Saints Church in Los Angeles. They cannot pass the money into Mexico, but they can pass it into BCA, which is an American nonprofit that will give them their tax deductible receipt. And then BCA is allowed by IRS to transfer that money into Mexico. And we are allowed by the Mexican IRS to do that. And we decided that we needed, the number one thing we needed was iPads. We had notebooks and pencils, but the system was so broken, the education system, that we needed to update it. And of course, we could have bought many cheap tablets, but all of our projects, the number one theme is dignity. So we wanted the migrant children waiting for asylum to have an iPad. So when they come here, they know how to use an iPad. And the first exercise they do there is to find their journey. You download an app that tells them where their hometown is in Guerrero or in Guatemala. And the other part is that many of the Guatemalans do not speak Spanish. The kids, the 5, 6, 7 years old, are now their parents' translators. That's how it works. That's how fast they learn. That's why we must invest in this kind of programs. This is not charity. We want you to understand that investing in the border community, in the different projects, and especially in the education about what the border is. The new program for adults, it's something we had been looking for a long, long time, but people didn't stay long enough. And people were not seeking asylum until 2019. We started with the Haitians 2018, 300 of them. Most of them didn't make it. Most of them went to Tijuana. Tijuana now has a new community of around 10,000 Haitians. Starting alive, starting a new Haiti, new cuisine, restaurants, teachers, French teachers, Haitian French teachers, and so on. And this new mobility around the country that we didn't have, it's allowing us to grow into what kind of programs we must offer the migrant community if they decide to stay or are forced to stay, or if they are granted asylum. So providing this kind of technical education, it's really, really showing us what's possible. So the next generation of asylum seekers will be trained in some basic skills. And we know that many of them will start working from home here, doing hair, taking care of the elderly, babysitting. And there's a new career that I didn't know of, I just learned of it, which is killing lice. There's a huge need in the US for killing lice experts. Did you know that? Okay, we just heard from one woman from Ecuador. She presented here in the Good Shepherd Church like a month ago. She moved when she was granted asylum, she moved to New York, somewhere in New York State, and she was hired by a company to kill lice. They asked her, do you know how to kill lice? Of course, we kill lice every day in our hometown. So she was hired by the agency to go and kill lice and do all the treatment for very VIP, wealthy people, families. You don't want your friends to know that your kid has lice, right? So you hire these agencies to do personal lice killing at home. And it will be a session of 1 or 2, 3 visits a month. And now she was being paid $28 the hour. And the agency was charging the family 100 and something. So her business mind started working, said, I should start my own lice killing company. And she did. She now hires other migrant women that are willing to kill lice. Seems Americans don't want to kill lice. And she also started developing some of the shampoos they have in her hometown in Ecuador, some kind of soaps, etc. So the client has the ability to choose from the traditional killing lice methods, the medication, soaps, etc., or her own. So she has two businesses. She runs the killing lice company and the products she sells from her LTC. So that's why we are focusing into training for this kind of jobs that they will have, and they are so much needed right now in the United States. This effort that we started yesterday will provide an official document from the public school system. So when they cross, the kids will have an official, how do you call the grade reports? Yes, and the adults will have a document that proves that they took this or that training course. The waiting time, I think, is going to be very long. I don't think personally that asylum is going to be open anytime before the midterms. I might be very wrong, but that's my perception. And it might open a very few numbers for people who are in high dangerous situations. 90-something% of the people waiting for asylum are mostly people from Guerrero who are being displaced by the cartels to take their little piece of land. And we know where the consumers are. We have plenty of consumers in Mexico, but we have more here. So this is the whole story of why this is happening. This is a market thing. More consumers, more things, more drugs that you have to get. So these people tell horror stories of how they were told by the cartels to leave their tiny farm by tomorrow at 8 a.m. And by the way, if you don't, we will take your older daughter. So people just flee with whatever they're wearing. And we have gotten tons of in-kind donations, especially from Green Valley, toys, clothes, etc. Migrant people waiting for asylum can only carry what they can put in their backpacks. We must think of a small towel, an extra change of clothes and underwear, and socks. Socks are the treasure for these people. A few of them will hire, the coyote, the undocumented way of coming. And they all say, I have a job. I have a job in Wisconsin. I have a job in, Washington. They swear they have a job. And I have to believe them that they do have a job. The rest who are waiting for asylum, doing it with the right way, are waiting for a long time. We don't know if they're going to make it or not. There is a program, a Methodist program in Phoenix called Justice for Our Neighbors, who is the legal firm that is in charge of that for Casa La Misericordia. And the other one is the Florence Project, working with KBI, the Kino Border Initiative with the Jesuits. So even though Nogales is a small community, there are a lot of efforts to keep the migrant community safe. And I started with migration because I know it's on the news every day, and I know it's something that brings attention into it. So what we're doing in Nogales, we are not, from FESAC, the community foundation I work for, we're not just providing support for shelter. That's like a Band-Aid, food, toilet paper, whatever the shelter needs. Last year, 2020, we started moving into the social investment for education for kids. Now we're moving into the education for adults. So this is our number one priority now regarding funding. The other part of it, which is really important for us, is the issue of special education. Autism, Down syndrome, deaf, many of those kids, and this is also related to migration, many of those families with those kids with disabilities, they would try to come into the US. Everyone has a friend in Nogales, Arizona, who is a US citizen who could adopt the child so he could attend school. Once visas started to, take longer, more expensive, the lines are awfully long for people who do not have the Sentry card. They decided that they had to do something on the Mexican side of the border. We like to call that perspective local solutions for local problems. Our problem is that the family is very poor. That's a problem. But the biggest problem is the lack of infrastructure with public education. No public transportation, public buses for school, school buses, etc. So what this group of families decided to do, and most of them are maquila workers family. You know what a maquila is? The twin plant factory in the Mexican side. They decided they had to do something. And when they started coming to our office 10, 12 years ago, they had a wish list from here to Las Vegas. And I told them, that's what they needed. And I told them, don't tell me what you need. It's a never ending story. Tell me what you have. Well, after a few hours of conversations and a few coffees, all they had was 20 autistic kids, 30 deaf kids. And that's their biggest asset. That's how they started. The first 4 deaf teachers in Sonora have graduated in Nogales this past May to become public school teachers. They're not going to end up begging like the older deaf poor people. People whose families, deaf children whose families have better insurance will go to Hermosillo or Monterrey. Okay, those who are born here will move to Tucson or La Jolla, whatever their family's income allows them to be. Those who are going to be in Nogales, Sonora are those who are stuck, as we say, in the system. It's so expensive to be poor. For those of you who were ever poor, if ever, everything is twice as expensive. From the soap you buy to the house you can afford. And these groups of nonprofits have allowed the families to have an income. If it's a sewing class, a lot of women do alterations from home. A lot of women are selling online. When the COVID season started, they started making masks and selling them. Now we know the cloth mask is not that good, but it saved us, right? For the first year, and people were happy sewing masks all over. And those small efforts under the social investment umbrella allowed us to change the narrative of the border. When people who have not been into Nogales think of border towns, we usually think of, shaggy towns and all those houses that we see on the hills. Yes, that's part of it. But you must see with your own eyes the rest of it, the urban development. Knowing that in 2000, we arrived in Nogales in 2000. And my family and I arrived for the same reason. My husband was hired by Motorola, which was the biggest maquila at that time, 7,000 employees. It was like a small town. He was hired as the human resources manager for the night shift, which left him with a sore stomach for a long time. And we did come because it was a much better paying job for him, like the previous one he had. So it's exactly the same reason why 80% of us in Nogales were not born in Nogales, because people come here to work. When we think about the myths of the border is that everyone comes trying to jump over, as we say. No, many people have never crossed and are working and are making their own community. We have the Tabasco community, we have the Chiapas community, and so on. A lot of people come because of the higher paying jobs than in the rest of Mexico. And as the American economy blooms, so does the economy in border towns because of the maquilas. And now many of the maquilas are moving from China. Guess what? The change supply. And the newest maquila, which I haven't been in, but I want to go, is the one that is manufacturing now the furniture, desks, tables and chairs for Starbucks and McDonald's. So every time you see that your chair at Starbucks and McDonald's, think about Nogales. It's brand new. So that's how the economy is moving back to the Mexican border towns, which we are very happy for. And the other part about the social investment ideas that I want to leave you to work with is the construction of social and human capital. When we speak about donating, it's a few, you think of the pyramid, a few at the top have a lot and are giving down to those who have very little or nothing. And usually you are better educated, you have a wealthier way of life, et cetera, et cetera. We want to change that perspective into social investment to make it more of a linear investment. You decide where you want to put your money, okay? And you decide how much you're gonna put, and you have a voice into it. The sponsor advice funds that we do through BCA have proven wonderful with US funding because it allows us to leverage with other financial social investors, larger one. For example, YAF, the Inter-American Foundation, it's a fund from the US Congress for Latin America. It paid for our salary, it bought our first laptop, and it paid us $20 a month for gas, which lasted for a week, for 3 years, to allow us to be a community foundation, to be the kind of bridge among donors and nonprofits. We are the very few in the country. There are 16 of us who do not run the programs. If you come to our office and say, do you work with migrants? Do you work with special education? Do you work with the arts? Yes, but it's not us. There are only paperwork in our office. For those of you who have been to Nogales, if you have noticed a lot of new art, a lot of new murals, part of it has been sponsored by the U of A, the Confluence Center. During the pandemic, I haven't been able yet to meet with all of the social investors at the U of A, but they decided to invest $40,000 for Mexican artists in Nogales. Many of them got a special visa to come to the U of A. We also work very close with the US Consulate, General Consulate in Nogales, Sonora. We have put on the table the conversation that no one can do this alone. If we speak about supporting nonprofit, it must be in a team effort. For many years, it was just one organization trying to accomplish everything. If you think of the orphanages, for example, if you think of the art centers for kids, we think of the bad news of the border again, Juarez and all of those awful examples of what happened. We know what happens to a kid who is out of school at 10. We know what's going to happen. So providing other alternatives after school, supporting the Boys and Girls Local Club, the other youth initiatives, that will be the babysitting during the afternoon. The mother will not come home until 6 p.m. So the kid will be out from 12:30 until 6. And we know what's going to happen. In all of the centers that we have been investing in the past years, something we can be very proud of, those places are dangerous. Those neighborhoods where these organizations are, those facilities, so far, we have not had young pregnant girls, as everywhere else in the city, and boys killed. Let's not go into the metrics and, demographic. Let's just think of how many of them are in school, 100%. So that makes the big difference. We can give each student funding. That would not solve anything. But if we support the youth center, where they can stay after school until the mother arrives, there's a safe place. And that's good for the community. We usually joke and said to some of our donors that, I know you want to go to heaven. We will put you there because of these programs. Whatever your religion is, sorry, I forget. Wherever the religion or the political position you have, you want a safe community and a healthy community. And if we can have a happy community, well, that's much better. So I encourage you to join the BCA tours that Celia is going to talk about. We are all fully vaccinated. We are taking all the precautions, and it's going to give you a very different perspective from the dentist's office that you have been and La Roca. We want you to see all the social investment projects, previously called charity organizations. Thank you. Questions? Yeah, for questions.
Yes, questions we're going to take after Celia gets online. Okay, Celia down there, if you will start your share, we would be in great shape. And then I'm going to have to turn up the volume in here, turn off the sound, here. Yeah, this is fun. So what I'm gonna turn off the sound here. And then, can you turn the sound up on the mic, on the speakers? And have you got your slideshow ready, Celia?
It's coming. 1 second.
She's down in, okay, there you are. I'm gonna mute, oops, we're not quite ready. This is the first time we've done this live here, live online. And there's her slideshow, and I'm gonna mute. And if you'd start talking, Celia, I think we're all in great shape.
Okay, great. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Celia Bevere, and I am the Executive Director of the Border Community Alliance. I work very closely with Alma, who you just heard from. She's basically my counterpart in Mexico, and we work together on many, many things, and she's a great partner. So thank you, Alma, for getting us going this morning. I'm going to zip through quite a few slides quickly, so just bear with me. Border Community Alliance has been around now for almost 10 years, and we were founded by a group of Pima County, especially Green Valley, and Santa Cruz County residents who felt like the countries were too separated. We needed to bridge the border. We needed to create regional collaborations and communities. And as Alma talked about, stress the positive images and nature of the border region, which is an incredibly culturally diverse, historical, and environmentally diverse area of the country and the world. It's really unique in many ways. And so we were created to basically bridge the border through education, cultural exchange, and social investment. And I'm going to touch on all three of those parts of our mission now. In terms of education, hopefully some of you have attended our Borderlands forums. We do quite a few in Green Valley. And we also have a Borderlands Literature and Film Circle, which anyone is welcome to join. We do breakfast at the border events, and we also have Spanish classes. Since COVID, we brought everything online during COVID, and now we're sort of doing a hybrid like you all are of some in-person and some online events to meet everybody's needs during this time. I'm just going to give you a couple examples of our Borderlands forums, just so you know the diversity of the programs we have. We don't focus on a certain area. We don't focus on immigration. We don't focus on religion. We don't focus on the environment. We want to tell people about all the different things going on in the Borderlands region that people can be involved in. One of the things is knowing Mexico's history. Like many of you, I don't know a lot about it, so I'm actually going to sign. I actually signed up for this course. This starts on February 14th. It's going to be online and a one session in person at the U.S. Consulate in Nogales. It's going to be a great course taught by a couple of our board members, and it's basically Mexico history for beginners. So I encourage you to join us. This is another example of a forum. We have a new award-winning film that we created called Pilgrimage to Magdalena. And this is actually today airing at the Santa Fe Film Festival. So we're really excited about that. We enrolled it in a few film festivals, but the Pilgrimage to Magdalena is a great example of cross-border cultural collaboration. And we want to highlight this, which is why we created this film. An upcoming session that's right in your backyard at CPAC in a few weeks is Economics at the Border. This will highlight two consulates, the Consul General from the US and the acting consul from Mexico and Nogales. And they'll be talking about how so much of our economics in this country is related to Nogales and the Mexican border. And I think it'll be fascinating. So I encourage you to join us for that. And this is just another example. This is one of our, I guess you'd call it our environmental trips. It's a birding trip. I know many of people in Green Valley and Santa Cruz County and Pima County love birding. We have one of the premier birding areas of the world, really. And so we have this trip coming up in February and another one in April, if you're interested. And I should say that all this information about our trips, our tours, and registering can be found on our website. We try to keep the cost of attending our trips very low. Usually we request a $10 donation if you're able, or a few of them have fees just because of the cost, but we try to be inclusive in who can attend by keeping it by donation or very low fees. It was just one of our forums we held recently in Green Valley on the migrant situation. This is our Borderlands Literature and Film Circle flyer. We meet monthly. We often have the author of the book at the session, which is now on Zoom. Anybody can join this. You can join for a whole year. You can just come to one meeting. We will have a table at the Tucson Book Festival in March, where we'll have 6 different authors doing book signings. So that's exciting for us. There's Alma. You'll recognize her on the right. This was a Breakfast at the Border event we held a few months ago in the Canoa Ranch Country Club building. This is another thing we're doing to try to bridge the border, is offering Spanish classes. Since COVID, we actually took it as an opportunity. And since we went online with our Spanish classes, we're able to hire native speakers from Mexico who live in Mexico to teach our classes now, which is amazing. We're offering beginner and advanced classes. So feel free to look into that if you'd like to improve your Spanish or start from the beginning in Spanish. The second prong of our mission is cultural exchange. We do that, Alma has mentioned the cross-border tours we do into Nogales. And also we do other tours that are multi-day trips across the border, which I'll also talk about. This is one of our multi-day trips coming up. Actually, we're going to Oaxaca. We have, our trips are unique. They're very small groups of people. We focus on the culture of the area, the environmental things going on. We often go to people's houses that live in that area for dinner. In this particular trip, we have an indigenous artist, Porfirio Gutierrez, who's going to be leading this trip, and his family does all sorts of artistry using native plants in that area. So this will be a very unique trip. We do have 2 slots available on this trip that just opened up if anybody is interested. We have another Oaxaca trip coming up in October. So this one has just opened. Oaxaca is a beautiful area. It's known for its native artisans, and I highly encourage many of you to travel there. These are pictures of our last Oaxaca tour, which was held, I believe, 2 years ago, pre-COVID. We canceled all our cross-border trips for a couple of years, and we're just restarting them. These are highlights of our trips. These photos to Oaxaca and Alamos. Beautiful, beautiful photos, beautiful, beautiful area. This is a photo taken at one of the artisans' homes and workshops where they're, looks like they're making some sort of garment using their native dyes. Again, these are our upcoming Oaxaca trips. We will be putting one in December, a pre-holiday trip. We'll give you the dates on that when we have them. This is, I just wanted to share some photos of our last Nogales cross-border trip. As Alma says, these are really important for cross-border collaboration and also for our social investment work that we do, because we do some fun stuff here. We're eating lunch. And we do go to Cafe La Roca at the end of the day, but we are mainly visiting our nonprofits that we collaborate with Alma's Foundation to see the work that they're doing. This is this beautiful mural is at Casa de la Misericordia, which Alma mentioned, which is a shelter for asylum seekers, and where the education program that she was talking about is held for children and now adults. Because at the end of the day, the fun part of the day when we go to La Roca, third on the left is Consul General Laura Biederbach. She is stationed right now in Nogales with the State Department, and she will actually be coming to speak at the Economics at the Border event that I talked about on February 24th, and she's a really dynamic speaker. Our next Nogales Day tour is February 16th, which is next week. I believe there might be still a couple spots available in that, and we do have those monthly through May. And Alma will lead those tours. She does a great job. We also do tours on the US side of the border. Right now, this is our most popular tour, which is our Santa Cruz Valley Heritage Tour. We go to Mission Gardens, we go to El Presidio, we go to this Barrio Historico neighborhood in Tucson, and Pima County Courthouse, which is just restored. We go to various sites within Santa Cruz and Pima County on this tour. And we do this monthly as well. The last prong of our mission that I wanted to talk about was social investment. Alma went into this quite a bit, so I won't spend too much time on it, but just wanted you to know that BCA does, our members do social investment in over 20 nonprofits in Nogales, Sonora. We're proud to say that at least $350,000 has been invested in these nonprofits in the 10 years that we've been in existence. And last year, we actually hit a record of $135,000 invested in the nonprofits. And we do take social investment seriously. As Alma says, it's not charity. It means a long-term investment in an organization, in a region, in a group of people, and or in a social problem. And BCA definitely does this right now, especially with the immigration issue, but we do this with other issues as well. So it's not a top-down approach at all. It's not donors deciding what's needed. It's the people on the ground deciding what's needed and then us responding. Alma also mentioned the sewing project over there. FESAC and Border Community Alliance applied for some funds for sewing machines, which we obtained. And this started this whole women's sewing collaborative in the cathedral over in Nogales, Sonora. These women are able to make an income through sewing. We hope to expand this program by applying for more funds to get some more fancier equipment for this project over the coming months. And when you come on our Nogales tour, we will go by and see the sewing project. This is the shelter. This is the person that has run the shelter for over 40 years. It's a shelter for migrants coming through, and they get all sorts of services. San Juan Bosco shelter. Many people in Green Valley actually gave funds through BCA to this shelter over the summer when they had the historic flooding and people could not be out on the streets. It was very dangerous with so much water. So they sought shelter here at San Juan Bosco, and they desperately needed funds, and then we came through for that. So thank you for that, for all those who donated. This is pictures last July of how crowded this shelter was. Alma talked about the school. This is the school that Alma talked about was open all during the pandemic when all the other schools were closed in Nogales. These are the children of the families that are staying at Casa de la Misericordia through their asylum process. So right now that means indefinitely, since the asylum process is basically closed in the United States. So these families are here for the long term. Many of these kids have either never gone to school or they have not gone to school in several years because of their migrant status. So this is a tremendous program, and we hope to keep it actually up over the summer by providing some interns to this program as well, so that kids don't lose all the stuff they've learned over the school year. This is another really popular organization that FESAC and BCA supports called Arsorbo, which is a nonprofit that gives hearing aids, prosthetics to people that can't afford them in Mexico. They give what they can, and then through donations, the cost of these devices, which are incredibly expensive in the United States, as you know, like a hearing aid, but really astronomically out of reach for many in Mexico. So this nonprofit serves folks all over Mexico who come here to get a prosthetic or a hearing aid or a wheelchair. They make wheelchairs here as well. So this is probably our longest social investment program, BCA's, and it's highly successful. Somebody getting their prosthetic fitted, looking very happy. Lastly, and then I'm going to close soon and open this up to questions, is I just wanted to highlight our internship program. This has been going on for 10 years, and we raise money every year to support 4 to 6 interns to live in Nogales. And this year they'll be doing service learning in various nonprofits, including in Casa de la Misericordia, working with the children. We provide $1,000 stipend and also housing. So it's an expensive program, but we're trying to create Borderlands ambassadors with these youth and send them back into their communities to give the real story about the Borderlands. And also, in our experience, many of them have actually moved to this region and become worked on border issues. These are some of our interns and Alma. Lastly, this is our impact statement, BCA's impact statement from last year, from 2021. Again, it just highlights the money, the funds that we've been able to send and channel, working with Alma, over to some of the nonprofits that we target. The number of people we've reached through our forums, even despite COVID, I feel like we expanded our reach because we did so many Zoom events. So people from Wisconsin and even England and Canada were joining us for events because we could do them online. We created our film that I talked about. We created the new Santa Cruz Valley Heritage Tour. We did a lot of things that we're really proud of, and we hope to keep going, even though it was a tough time. Lastly, I don't know if you can see this slide very well, but it's on our website, which is a list of all our upcoming events. We have a lot going on in February and March. Those are our 2 most busy months because many snowbirds, leave and go away for the summer. So we do a lot of our programming through March. And then I know some of you at least start to leave for other climates. And that is all. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to stop my screen share. And I'm back. Happy to open it up for questions for Alma or myself, if you'd like.
Okay. No, I can't do that. We got terrible feedback here. So what I'm going to do. Mute you. When I turn screen. Okay. Come on, turn screen. Stand up this thing.
Maybe you can, raise my voice.
Yeah, speak really
Okay, I
loudly.
will raise my voice. Before I forget, when Celia mentioned, or Solvon mentioned about giving the hearing aids, etc. One thing that is really important for you to know is that the prosthetics are manufactured in that place by a man who is an amputee himself. So he's also a psychologist for the patients. The children, especially the children who need the hearing aids, are going to be students at the nonprofit for the deaf kids, Manitas que Hablan. And the wheelchairs are manufactured by another man who is in a wheelchair himself and was a student at the San Francisco State University to learn how to make those wheelchairs that we call all-terrain because of the non-existent sidewalks and the up and downs in Nogales, which makes it impossible. We actually had a few years ago some electric chair donations from Green Valley, which ended up as TV, decorations. People had to take out the frames of their tiny houses to pull the chair into the living room, and then it would just stay there forever. So you cannot use an electric wheelchair, the traditional electric wheelchair. So we're open for any questions, please.
Do you have any groups going to Mata Ortiz?
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to vote people going on those tours. I was on the tour that you gave. I got past the first 2 blocks of Nogales, which is a much larger city than most of us think. We got to tour the wrong side of the tracks that has absolutely fabulous views of the city, but they're on the wrong side of the track. And some of those places, people who are in those buildings work in the buildings. If they're sheltered, they have to keep it clean. The one place that had harbored the children, there was a garden that they had to work in. It was a wonderful tour. And I would highly recommend any of you going on it. It's safe, it's protected, and you get beyond the first 2 blocks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So in addition to the
biggest issue is always how to provide more than just shelter and food. Education has been the biggest issue, and of course the legal assistance, but focusing on education, I think, is going to be the biggest challenge for this year, especially with COVID, that many places have been shut for so long that people didn't have a chance to attend any educational programs that they will be able to now.
Anything else?
Watch the Magdalena pilgrimage movie, fantastic if you ever get a chance to see that. And then we've also been on the cross-border tour, gastronomic tour, and I have to say I'm so impressed with the wheelchair factory, the community, with the mother. Anyway, it was, and I wish everyone could do it. And you are the most charming tour guide.
Thank you.
The documentary they're talking about, we are working with a couple organizations now to see if we can have that documentary shown in Green Valley, but it probably will not be until fall. That's when the pilgrimage is, right?
Yes,
October?
October, and it has been canceled for the past 2 years because of
But it
COVID.
will be coming up.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully. So we're attempting to get a sponsor organization in Green Valley to do that. And my friend Helen, are you still here? Yep, she's gonna help me do it. I put you on the spot in front of all these people. So,
Good.
okay.
Let me tell you, my husband is from Magdalena, so we lived there for many years. He was born and raised there, and we have learned more about it with this kind of learning opportunities than he ever did living there. The amount of research is amazing. And by the way, one of the presentation, if you get the chance to see it, one of the women walking from the Tohono tribe is wearing brand new white Nike tennis shoes. So we send the picture, to the Nike Corporation, and I will keep you updated if it happens, because she's resting with her cane, but the shoes, the tennis shoes, are the big piece of the picture. I said, we have to target those guys. So hopefully.
Okay,
Anything
we'll
else?
take one more. Go ahead.
You know, the asylum program, I don't know much. Why is that shut down?
Don't get me there. Well, remember in the previous administration, should we go there? In the previous administration here in the United States, COVID started in the border restrictions started in March 21, I think, 2020. But in January 1st, asylum was closed down because of the health warning from China. So it was a perfect momentum to, close the border for asylum seekers. And then COVID happened. And when the Biden administration started, many migrants thought it was the moment. Mr. President had to come out a few weeks later after he took office saying the border is closed for asylum. It was reopened only from April 2021 until June. So the new people that have arrived starting July have now had the opportunity to present themselves. And the only people that are into the asylum process kind of are very few specific for very dangerous situations. But for the majority, asylum is closed.
Is it gonna open? Do you have a feel for future?
Not before the midterms, and this is just me. I don't have any much more information, but I think it's very much on the political arena.
I'm sorry.
No. And by the way, going into politics, I always say that bureaucracy can kill the best project. Go into bureaucracy and you're dead. We started with the public education secretary to pay for the teachers. We just asked them to pay for the teachers. We will cover all of the rest. They pay for the teachers from September 2020 until December. Out of the blue, I got an email and say, oh, the president of Mexico considers that paying for teachers for migrant kids, it's not necessary anymore. There are no migrant kids. Why should we worry? So it has always been on the shoulders of civil society. We have restarted the conversation, still no funding. So we are having a piggy bank. We are always going to have a piggy bank of 6 months of the salary, just in case they decide to restart and then they decide to stop it. We cannot rely on public funding, even for teachers. And we have decided we are not going to lose any more energy on that. We're doing it on our own. And kids who were 12 and had never been in school, they were in the first grade group and they didn't like to be 12, being with the 6-year-olds. So the teachers, this two young couple, have decided they always want to work with migrant kids. This is another career opportunity. This is about creating new jobs. So this is not about only the service for the migrant population, but for the people who are working on it. Very, very young. They are both under 30. And they downloaded many apps for them in the iPads to do during the afternoon. So in 4 months, they were with the other group of 3rd to 6th graders, which they felt comfortable with. This is not only about learning to read and write. This is also about the social environment. And many of the kids had lost 2 years of school before the pandemic. So if this didn't happen, this school program, they will be 4 years behind. So you will not have a kid who is 14 or 15 back in school. We know that. So we're filling that gap and we are creating jobs within the nonprofits, which is the social investment part.
Okay, it's 10:05. Let's give them another hand, please.
Thank you.
And will you hang around a little bit?
Absolutely.
Alma will stay up here for a few minutes after we're done, and see you all next week.